Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to create a sandwich with our backing fabric, which, you know, I found a real pretty backing fabric that has snowflakes on it, so it kind of goes very nicely with the design itself. Okay, so I laid that face down on my cutting surface. Okay, put that face down, and before you do this, make sure you press everything so nice so that you remove a lot of the creases or the wrinkles that come with the normal fabric. Then I found a piece of batting fabric that is from my scrap bin. So what I did is I found this one that was wide enough and long enough. So I placed that on top of my backing fabric, smooth it out as well. Okay. And then on top of that, I placed my embroidered slash decorative stitched center. Okay. So smooth everything out as you go. And one thing that I forgot to mention earlier is how I pressed the section to make sure I removed all those marks from that friction pen. But you can do that at this point too, okay? You can make sure that that's all smooth and so forth, because you want this to be nice and flat, okay? Another thing that I like to do is I took a little can of the spray adhesive, and I sprayed the back side between each of the layers to make sure and to smooth it out so that it doesn't shift during embroidery. Because when you're hooping, you know, you don't want the fabric or the batting or the backing to shift, and so just to secure that a little bit, so lightly spray between each of the layers to secure it. Okay. Another thing that I find that was really helpful and helps to stabilize this area was the center. What I did right around this decorative stitch, I used a monofilament thread from Sulky, has a brand, and also another one was from Superior Brands. It's a monofilament thread. And what I did with this thread is I threaded the machine and I stitched really close to the edge. Okay, you can't see that stitch from the edge or from the top side, but you can definitely see it on the back side, and it helps to secure the section in place so that you don't have shifting. Another thing that you can do with that monofilament thread, if you so choose, I didn't do it, but you can do it, stitch close to around like the cardinals, because what it'll do is it'll give more depth to that design as well. So I mean, if you want to do it, you can definitely experiment with it, because I mean, you'll find that, you know, what it does is it will give more depth, and it'll make these cardinals or any part of this design pop out. Okay, what we're going to do now, we're going to measure the top edge to determine the width on that edge. And right now, that width is about 18 inches. Now, I want you to not take that as gospel truth, because when you create it, your measurements might be slightly different. So I want you to definitely measure it using your calculations. But across the top edge, that is 18 inches. That's for the first setting. And then we're going to scoot this up a little bit. And then for the second setting, you're going to measure from that corner right there down to this corner. And it's about 20 inches. So we're going to jot down 20 inches. And there again, I want you to make sure you measure for your quilt or for your wall hanging, because it may be slightly different. Okay. Here we are back at the machine again. So what we're going to do, we're going to click on the embroidery heading. Okay. And once into this heading, this is where you choose all your infinite possibilities, of course. We're going to click on the Q, which is the quilting border function. So open that up. And in the Solaris too, they've given us several new frames that we can use for sashing. They've also given us a multicolor, a two-color type of a border frame, and they've also given us hexagon frames. But the one we're going to choose today is under O1, And we're going to choose one of the new frames that came with this upgrade. Okay, I'm going to choose 016. And the reason I chose this, you know, I was looking for something that had a little bit more Christmas feel to it. And as a child, I always thought, you know, or I remember eating that ribbon candy, and this kind of reminded me of that ribbon candy. So I thought, well, this will do very nicely for a holiday or a Christmas type of a project. So I'm going to select this one, click on Set. And in this area, you have your type of split. The very first opportunity, this one is for smaller areas. So if you were to choose this one, you'd have less pieces within your border sashing area. But it'll go up to like, let's see, let's look at it here. It goes up to 20 inches, or 20 and a half inches by 30 or so inches. And so it's for smaller projects that you might choose. I'm going to return and go back to the other one because that's the one I really need to focus on. Okay, so we're going to go back and select that ribbon type of a sash. Click on Set. We're going to choose this particular opportunity because it's going to allow us to do quilts that are up to a king size in their dimension. So you can have a lot of fun with this and quilt those larger sashings on larger quilts, queen quilt, double, whatever it might be, you know, because it'll take you up to 118 inches in either direction. Okay, so when I was measuring earlier, I told you that we were going to jot down those numbers. We've already done our measurements, so what we're going to do is we're going to enter in those numbers at this point in time. Okay, the first one, and it's so intuitive. Like I said earlier in this video, the baby lock machines, and especially this Solaris machine, is so intuitive with the opportunities, and it'll walk you through everything as needed. So we're going to start up here with the first one, number 1. We're going to come down here, and so that number that we're going to enter in was, if you remember, was 23. Okay, so 0.00, so we're dealing in inches here, so we're going to set it. Then look how it just automatically bounces over to number 2. Number 2 setting was from the top all the way down to the bottom edge, you know, that where we had measured. And that measurement was 25 inches. Set it. Now, the widest that you can have one of your sashing areas is approximately 4 inches. So what we're going to do is we're gonna use that large number that's there already, 3.94, which is just a tad shy of 4 inches. So, but we're going to enter that number in, 3.94, and set it. Okay, this area down here is the last area that we need to fill in. We have to select the size of that magnetic hoop. The size of it is 7 inches by 14, but as you look through this number, you'll see all the different sizes listed, but we're going to keep selecting until we get back to that 7 by 14 inch hoop. Okay. Now what we're going to do is we're going to click on Next. And at this point in time, you can see the different hoopings that we have. So this is the top right corner. That's what that design is going to look like. Then we're going to come down to the center, to the right center area, and you're going to work around the wall hanging in this direction until you get back to where we started. So down here it shows how many total pieces that will be part of this particular quilting sash border that we've selected. We're going to also, down here, you can also select what type of a stitch you want to apply. Is it a single stitch or is it a triple? And this is new in this Solaris 2 and the upgrade as well. So we're going to select the triple because it's a very pretty stitch. We can also select our color if we so choose. I'm going to just stay with the computer generated, which was a dusty rose, which we always have the option of changing our threads and threading the machine as we so choose. So I'm going to let that play out. So I'm going to click on memory. Here again, another little intuitive message. The data was saved in the machine's memory. Okay, and we're going to say okay to this. And now we can select where we want it saved. So I want it saved in the machine itself. You can also save to a thumb drive, whichever, but I choose to save it into the machine. It's easier to grab hold of at this point in time. Okay, so there it is. It's saved. And next thing we're going to do is go ahead and select it. Now we're going to grab hold of it, and each of the pieces that were saved, you can do them individually as such. But in this situation, what we're going to do, we're going to show how automated this particular feature and how well it works for us. So we're going to select the first category, the first design that's up here that's got the 12 pieces. Okay, we're going to click on Set. And then it automatically will pop up into that, and it showed on the screen there that first corner. Okay, in this field, this shows you the location that you need to have hooped. So this is the upper right corner. So we've already hooped our project, so we know that we needed to hoop that area, so we're going to continue on. Now what we're going to do is continue past this as well, because this is it's going to tell you pretty much what you have to do to make sure that that design fits in that corner properly. So we're going to say okay to this, and we will have to adjust our background. So now what happens, it turns the camera on, and you can see how the light is projecting downward. Okay. And we're going to have to move our design up into that corner. So we're going to use these keys. Notice how whatever we do here, it's going to move that design up into the corner, or somewhat into the corner. And the projection is going to get us into that corner. You're going to move the arrows as needed. I'm going to move this one. And you're going to want to take your time with this for this very first design, because you want to make sure that you get it placed, exactly where you want it. These buttons down here, what they do is they designate the area that you're looking at on within the hoop itself as to where the design is placed and how it looks. So right over here, it shows that the bottom edge, or the bottom left edge, is right in here, and you can go around the design area to view where it's positioned. See, right up in here is the top corner, and it's showing where that design is going to be positioned. I'm going to go back to the center point right there. I'm going to actually move it outward a little bit more so it's not right on the line here, and up a couple clicks too. So you can see that I wanted it a little bit of a distance away, maybe 1/4 of an inch or so away from that seam line. And I think at this point in time, we can start the magic, because we're going to click OK to it. Okay. And we went through our layout already, so we're all set there. Next thing is just making sure we thread our machine with the color thread that you choose. I chose, I could use quilting thread. In this situation, I'm using embroidery thread, and it does a very nice job as well with quilting. So I'm going to go ahead and lower my presser foot. I get the OK, the green light for the start-stop button. I'm ready to embroider. And this first pass is showing us that it did line up exactly where we told it to go. And these embroideries will be relatively fast with their functionality, with their application, I should say. Because you don't have a whole lot of stitches there. At this point in time, you only have 419 stitches total in this little corner area. So it'll embroider out relatively fast. And notice where it's stopping, about 1/4 of an inch from that seam. And wow, we got to the end point. Okay, right there it is. So that's where the new design will pick up. Okay, so now what we have to do is embroidery is finished, okay to connect the next pattern. So we're going to say okay to this. Okay, and there it shows us the next pattern. And again, the intuitiveness of this machine tells us exactly what we need to do and how we need to make that fit. So we're going to remove the hoop from the arm pretty much the same way we put it on. So I released it there. I'm going to take it through this upper left area to slide it off. And now what we need to do, we need to re-hoop it. So that's the next step. Okay, what I'm going to do at this point in time is remove some of the magnets. I'm going to leave only one magnet in place, and it's going to be this particular one right here. So this here tool is great for lifting up those magnets, and it makes it easier on your hands as well. You know, you're not struggling with it. Lift those up, each one, set them off to the side. This one too, and so forth, and so this one. Okay, now we left this one because we still want to maintain the area that we're going to be placing our border into, so we want it somewhat close, okay? And so what I'm going to do with this, I'm going to reach under here and hold the magnet on this flat surface and pull my fabric upward, almost there, till it gets into that corner, okay? That's pretty much there. So it maintained the position really nice. So now what we're going to do is go ahead and place our magnets back on again. Okay. Always have to make sure that the arrow is pointing inward. You can pretty much place these magnets wherever you feel it's getting the best coverage or the best securing, you know, the area within. But one thing we have to make sure we do, though, is make sure we leave our area that we're going to embroider in the embroidery area, and it's not at this point in time. So this is all a good lesson to be learned. We need to make sure that this end point is within the embroidered area. So push that up a little bit so that I can pull my fabric down. Okay, so we need to make sure, because that's where the stitch is going to continue on with. Okay, I think I almost have it there. Okay, We're making it work. I'm going to put this one down here. And almost good to go. There you go. Okay, now we're going to take this back to the machine, place it on the machine just like we did before, and then we'll make sure we line up our next design right in this area right here. Okay. Okay, the next thing, if you remember, it told us to rotate the design ever so slightly so it fits within the embroidery field. And we also want to make sure that the end point, where it starts up here, matches up with where we had ended with the first design that we embroidered. Okay, so you're going to have to use some of your rotate and your move keys to get to that position sometimes. It's all based upon the positioning within the frame itself and how well you were able to pull it and move that fabric through the magnets onto the hoop. Okay, so right now we're going to go back in there and we're going to show you right here. You can see right there, if you can see that well enough, there's a cross mark there. And right now I've moved it into position, you know, but with using these keys right there, and I'm going to use my pointer, sorry, to make sure that we get that exactly right. So you can move it up, down, over, right. And so the bottom portion here of the field shows you where on the embroidered design it's going to be placed into onto the fabric itself. So we're going to just walk ourselves around here, and as you can see, there's a little red, or there's a line that comes down here, a red line, and it's showing you the pretty much the position that design will be stitched onto. This is the bottom left corner. We're going to go over to the bottom right corner, and here that line or that cross mark shows up very nicely here. And then I'm going to go to the top right corner, and that top right corner is really important because that shows where that design is going to connect to the last design that we stitched. I'm going to say okay to this because I really like the position. Okay, I'm going to lower my presser foot and start stop button, and voila, there you go. It's right on target, right where we wanted it to embroider. And this particular section of the design has 678 stitches. Another thing to be aware of when you're using the metallic, or sorry, not metallic, that's a thread we use, but the magnetic hoop, is the machine automatically slows down to about 350 stitches per minute. And that's a good thing in this situation because you want to make sure that every stitch you take is placed where it should be, and so forth. But it definitely slows down that hoop automatically. You know, the stitch slows down, I should say, because we have the magnetic hoop onto the arm. And here we go. We're not too far from being done with this section. And notice the nice line over here. It stopped within that seam line, is exactly where I told it to stop. Now notice that's the end point. Okay, embroidery is finished. There we go. You know, we're going to continue in this fashion until we work ourselves all the way around this design. Okay, the next part of this project is creating buttonholes on our little wall tabs that's going to hold the wall hanging onto the wall. Okay. What we're going to do is we're going to put buttonholes in here. I've already covered a button here, but of course you can purchase your own buttons as well. You don't have to cover it, but I had the fabric and I thought, well, let's use the covered buttonhole. Okay, the buttonhole is 1.5 inches, and so it's hard to sew out 1.5 inch buttonhole on some of these machines. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a built-in embroidery design that creates buttonholes. So I'm going to click on this category here, and I'm going to use my mouse again. Click on this category, and it opens up into the buttonhole field. Now in here, you've got several different buttons, holes that you can create. Okay, the one I'm going to use is this one down here. It's 008. So I'm going to select it. Now in the Solaris 2 machine, you have the ability to resize these buttonholes smaller, because 4" is like the largest you can go, and that was the limitation in the first Solaris machine. But within this machine, you have the ability to make them small, small, super small, extra small, and so forth. So you have more flexibility with sizing your buttonholes in this machine itself. So what I'm going to do, since this button is 1.5 inches, I said, so I'm going to make or get a buttonhole that's very close in size. So with that buttonhole selected, I selected the small size. Up here it says it's 20 or 0.20 millimeters by 1.96. I'm sorry, this is inches, 1.96. So this is a little bit more than half, 1.5 inches. So what I'm going to do is resize it smaller. But before I can do that, I'm going to accept this particular size buttonhole. Click on Set, and then it places it right there on the workspace. I still have editing capabilities, and I'm going to do that. I'm going to size it downward slightly. Okay, so I'm going to come in here, and I want this number to be about 1.75 or so. So I'm going to use my, since it's going on the vertical, I want to use the vertical setting to decrease. So I'm going to take it down to about 1.76. So that's about 1.75 inches or so. And I think it'll work really nice for this 1.5 inch button that we've selected. So I'm going to click OK to accept it. And then I'm going to rotate it for one thing, because I want the button hole to go vertical on this little tab. So I'm going to rotate it. Rotate it 90. Click OK. And you can see you can still edit these buttonholes, which makes it very, very nice. So I'm going to click on embroidery at this point in time. I've already hooped my sticky stabilizer, and I placed the tab in the center of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it onto my machine, slide it on just like we do every other hoop. And this is the 4x4 hoop that I'm utilizing right now. Okay, it's in there. I'm also going to put my camera on. Okay, now with the camera on, I'm going to be able to view that placement of the button hole onto the fabric that I've, have within my hoop. So if you can see this, I'm going to reposition it so that comes a little bit downward in its positioning. I want to end it right up approximately right there. So I'm going to move it down. And I can also, okay, let's see. Let's move it down some more. Each click is moving it ever so slightly. And so you could use your finger and move it, but we're going to use our arrow keys. And I want it centered from left to right as well. I'm going to go a little further down on it, so it's closer to the point there. And if you have a little ruler, you can also measure too to see the distance on both sides to make sure it's about 1 1/8. And actually, it still has to go over just a little bit here. Okay, I think that's pretty close. That's about 1 inch and about 1 inch. So I think we're pretty much ready to go. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and click OK to this. And I've threaded my machine already with a gold colored thread. So just follow the path, thread it up, and put your presser foot down. Hit the start stop button at this point in time. And now it's going to produce that buttonhole. Buttonholes are great for home deck projects. Put them on pillows, like we're using it for a wall hanging, so that's great as well. I think this is, just something that you're going to have a lot of fun with. And a lot of people are fearful of buttonholes, but in this situation, since you're doing it in the hoop, it's pretty foolproof at this point in time. And it only takes about 1 minute to stitch them out too. Cuts it off. There we go. And there we are. We're completed with our buttonhole. So just slide this off, and you can just remove it from the sticky stabilizer, or from the sticky stabilizer backing that we used. Now, you can cut it, the buttonhole apart with these handy dandy little scissors. They're buttonhole scissors, which, it has a stop on there that, will get you to the end without cutting through that end tip up there where the stitches are. And these are Ginger scissors, but there again, if you don't have these and you prefer using your seam ripper, both of these little tools will work just fine. Okay, now let's see if our button fits. Poke it through, and voila, there it is. Fits perfect. To finish our wall hanging, since we've got all of our embroidery end point, and also our quilting border completed, and also our buttonhole, for our tab. Okay, we're ready to finish it up. Okay, so with your straight edge and your rotary cutter, you're going to leave approximately, or go inward approximately 1/2 inch from the stitch on the quilt border. So you're going to trim that away, okay, making sure everything is square, okay. Both sides, and come over on this side and do the same thing, making sure you leave about 1/2 inch, or go 1/2 inch in from that stitch, and do the same on the bottom, okay. So forth, cut that away. Then we're going to finish up with a binding. And I want you to refer to the directions for the binding, how to install the binding, on a video that Cindy had put out there for the placemats. Okay, so you're going to start on the long edge, work your way around. Okay, and that's of course after you trim away your allowance here. Okay, and you're just going to follow her directions on that. Okay, the tabs will be placed. I'm going to just set this aside for the time being. On the top edge, up here. And so what they're going to do is you're going to place them like this on the back edge, so that when you flip them over, that will be how it will look. And so you'll have your holder up here, and you'll have a little slot to slide your decorative pole through to hold your wall hanging. These directions will also be written up, and I'll give a copy to Annette or Larry at the at Phil's Sewing, so that if you want a copy of the directions, that's doable, and we'll make sure that's available to you as well. So that's pretty much how we created this project. What I'm going to do is show you the final here so that you have an idea how this looks. So this is where you put the buttons, the buttonholes, your binding, and how you trim around the outer edge and so forth. Here's the finished wall hanging that we created in this particular video. If you're interested in any of the notions or any of the products that have been shown in this video, please contact Larry or Annette at Phil's Sewing, or click on their link as shown below. Thank you, and I wish you all a very Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays.